when it was time to go home, my uncle, a couple of weeks before, had taken me by, showed me Snow Canyon, and I'm in my side going, why are we here? Great. Look, beautiful school. Never seen anything like that. He didn't say anything. 2 days before I go, pulls me in his office. Well, son, how did you like it here? Well, I had a great time. Thank you for bringing me. And he goes, well, awesome. Well, you live here now. Well, what do you mean? Your parents sold the house in Hawaii. They're on their way. They'll be here in a few days. That school we took you. You're already enrolled.
This episode is sponsored by Southern Utah Safe and Vault. It's one-stop shop, buy, education, delivery, everything you need with the safe or a vault door. Website is safesfirst.com. Their showroom is 1397 West, Sunset Boulevard, number 115 in St. George, Utah. Phone number is 435-767-7878. Hey guys, welcome back to the Derek Legg podcast. We are in the vault. This is episode 76. This is going to be a cool episode. We've had a lot of people reach out and want to come onto the podcast, and this was kind of one of those instances. It was actually through another one of our guests, so I'll introduce him. This is Aaron Reis. How's it going, Aaron?
Good, thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. We had our mutual friend is Tyler Campbell. Shout out to Tyler. Has been on the podcast a couple times. Love that guy. When I started this, he was the first person I reached out to. Hey, would you ever want to be a guest on this thing? And he's like, let's do it. And I'm like, hey, I want you on episode 1. And then
he's awesome. He's got some amazing stories.
Yeah.
For what he's been through in his life. He's fun to watch.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's his voice, man. Like I could listen to his voice forever. And so Tyler reached out and said, hey, I train with Aaron with Jiu Jitsu, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he was kind of talking about the podcast, and I said I'd pass his name on to you. So, so people question, does that really happen? Do we have people reach out and we bring them on all the time? Probably more often than not, it's someone reached out to us. So,
well, thank you very much for having me.
No, yeah, thanks for reaching out. So, we've kind of talked a little bit, and I just met you today. So, that's another thing people always ask, like, you've got a lot of friends, and I'm like, I don't know half the people that come on before we're in studio together. So, I feel like we kind of vibe really well. So usually I really kind of prep people before we get going, but with you, I feel pretty comfortable. So I think we're just going to kind of dive into it. So usually what I'll do is have people do just very small backstory. I don't want to get super boring at the first of the podcast, right? With, you grew up with so many siblings in a little town that you all slept in the same room together, all that, right? I just want just a little bit of who you are, where you came from, and then that kind of backstory is the rest of the podcast,
sure,
right?
Absolutely.
So I'll let you take it over from there.
Hey, well, I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. Grew up there till I was 17. At 17, I moved here to St. George, Utah, and I graduated the very first class of Snow Canyon. So that was like a big eye opener because school here and school back home in Hawaii is completely different. Had a great time, and been here ever since. I have 6 kids. My wife has 3. I have 3. So we've got a great family, and we love it here.
Awesome. So when you came from Hawaii, you told me a little story. So I want you to share that story because I think it's hilarious. But kind of expounded a little more from, you kind of said how you ended up here, but why did you end up here? What were you leaving from there? How did that happen?
Well, in Hawaii, growing up was a little rough kid, rough teen, hang out with a rough group that you just grew up with your whole life from elementary school up. And in Hawaii, it's very different than here. So, not trouble, but, get it, little here and there. So I came up to compete at the World Championships when I was 17 in Las Vegas. And my aunt, uncle, and cousins were already living here because they had built a company here. So I came to stay with here and train for a little bit before I went down to compete. And then I was going to stay the rest of the summer here. So go and compete, had a great time hanging out, just hanging out at their office, watching them work, hanging out in St. George before back then there wasn't much of anything. Like here on Sunset, it was literally from that Sunset Springs, there was nothing till you get to that gas station. So that's where their shop was, right by MegaPro and that Curtis Bakery.
Okay.
So, getting here when it was time to go home, my uncle, a couple of weeks before, had taken me by, showed me Snow Canyon, and I'm in my side going, why are we here? Great. Look, beautiful school. Never seen anything like that. He didn't say anything. 2 days before I go, pulls me in his office. Well, son, how did you like it here? Well, I had a great time. Thank you for bringing me. And he goes, well, awesome. Well, you live here now. Well, what do you mean? Your parents sold the house in Hawaii. They're on their way. They'll be here in a few days. That school we took you. You're already enrolled. And welcome.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man.
Welcome to Utah.
That was, it was a really rough transition because now, in school in Hawaii, we're fenced in. So like lunch, you're there, you don't leave. I go to Snow Canyon, I'm watching these kids at lunch just walk right out the front door. And in my mind, I'm like, wow, these kids just cut school in front of the principal. And I'm like, wow,
no
that's
one
amazing.
Even cares.
And then, I just stood by the wall the first couple of weeks, and it was really nice because all the teachers and the staff there were so cool. So they came up to me just to check on me. Hey, how you doing? And I finally looked at the principal and said, just wondering, you see all these kids like leaving campus. And he goes, yeah, you can go off campus to eat lunch or go home. And I'd looked at him straight in the eye. I'm like, and they come back? And he looked at me weird. He'd never heard. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, they go home and they come back to school. I said, in Hawaii, we have a lot of holes in our fence. So if it's a good day at the beach, we're gone and we're not coming back.
Yeah.
I'm like, if we look outside, because there was a really nice beach, like literally right down the street from my high school. So on a good day, nobody's there.
Yeah.
So, we cut school. That was it. Over here, they're like, oh yeah, you go home, eat lunch. I'm like, wow, these guys come back. Awesome. And so the other funny was there was nothing else to do here. So I had incredible grades when I got here. My parents, first thing my mom did, looked at my grades. Who are you cheating on? I'm like, there's nowhere to go. There's no beach. I just stayed and studied.
Yeah, just going to school.
Yeah. So I had a really great experience going to high school here. It was so much different where in Hawaii, everybody wants to be tough. So everywhere you go, everybody's just hard, both guys and girls. Coming here, I wanted to, really watch to see what kind of culture is it. I didn't want to, be one way or the other. So for the first few, weeks, I just kind of observed, and it was really cool to see the kids who would be considered the tough crew or the football jocks or whatever. These guys were acting like little kids, and it was okay. Everybody had fun, and it was, really relieving to go, you can just relax and enjoy instead of always trying to be a tough guy.
I like that.
And it was so much, I really had such a great experience. And I was lucky that I got along with everyone. So the kids who, wanted to be little rough guys or, just the good kids, I was lucky that I was able to really have a great group of friends to really give me such a good experience. So halfway through the year, my parents had bought me a ticket when they got here. When we first moved, they said, look, if you don't like it, you can go home and graduate. And so by the time that first semester was done, I had so much fun. I'm like, I'll stay. Because, just simple thing like the dances here, like, you don't just walk in Hawaii, you just walk up to girl, hey, you want to go to prom? Okay. Here you got to, you do the whole asking thing. Yeah. And then there's a whole day date. It was an amazing experience.
I thought everyone did that. That's just a Utah thing?
Pretty much. Because back home, it is insane. My whole time, going like junior prom, I sit home and wax the car. That was my day date. Go pick up the girl and, you go to the dance.
Right.
Here, it's like you have the day date, then you got to go to the dinner.
Oh, it's a whole thing,
then you go to the dance, then you have the after party. And then the greatest thing was Sadie's came around. I'm like, I get a free shirt. Are you kidding me? I'm like, wow, this is awesome.
Well, you got to get asked first.
Well, yes, thank goodness.
You had that figured out, huh?
But it was so cool that they went back and forth, guy choice, girl choice. And like I said, just to experience that for kids, like I loved when I had my own kids and they got to go through that because I know how much fun I had. So I was always the dad. So what are you guys going to do? Where are you going to go? Hey, you guys need help? I just had a good experience here. So I loved my 1 year, going to school here.
Yeah, it's awesome because when like nowadays we have the whole West Coast moving, well, not just Utah, but they're all kind of migrating east, right? And in the business I'm in, doing safes and vault doors mainly, we have a lot of people that are moving here and not bringing their safes with them. And so they'll come in and buy a new safe. And that's always my question. I'm like, why from Seattle to St. George, Utah? Like how did you come from California, Oregon, wherever? How'd you find St. George, Utah? So I'm always interested in, and it's funny, most of the California people will be like, oh, well, I'm getting out of California, but I'm not those kind of California people, right? And it just kind of makes me laugh. And I've lived in Utah my whole life. I was born in Salt Lake, and then we kind of moved south, and then I've been in St. George and Washington City since I was 6. So pretty much my whole life.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, this is all I know. Since I've known my address, it was in Washington, Utah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so let me back up just a touch. So you came to Vegas to compete. So in what kind of expound? I know, but for the listeners, kind of expound on what you were competing in and how that went.
I started martial arts when I was 4 years old.
Okay.
And so I've done that ever since. So now I'm 45. So I've done that for pretty much my entire life. And so Las Vegas every year holds world championships.
Okay.
So growing up, that was like the one tournament everybody would save up for to come here. Because in Hawaii, you just have the little small tournaments, you fight each other everywhere you go.
Yeah, same people.
So it was awesome. And I was lucky that when I was 12, Chuck Norris's top black belts moved to Hawaii. So I had started in a Japanese system. And I remember just going with my brother to go lift weights. And in their rec room, there was this little guy out there like doing all these cool, crazy jump spinning kicks. And I was watching him train, and he just saw me staring through the window for like a half an hour. And he finally came out and talked to me and said, "Hey kid, why don't you come try a class?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I want to switch to this." And that guy ended up, it's funny, if you've ever watched Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, his very first movie was called No Retreat, No Surrender.
Okay.
My instructor was like one of the co-main stars.
Oh, really?
So at the end of the movie, Van Damme and him fight before the main character comes in and beats up Van Damme.
Okay.
So we'd go to tournaments, and he's a funny guy. So like in California, on the tournament circuit, they either loved him or hated him because he was very cocky.
Sure.
Talked a lot of smack. And in Hawaii, he was hated for a long time because, Hawaiian people, like everybody's,
Yeah.
So here comes a short, he's like 5'6", and he's talking trash the whole time he's fighting. And it was just funny to me just to watch him. Like, man, this guy's either crazy or he's awesome.
Yeah.
And he would just school everybody. So it was funny to see that. And everywhere we'd go to do demos, as a kid, introducing Hollywood movie star. And I'm like, okay, you did that one. You get killed in Firecracker. It's like a 1980s movie. And then you did a ninja movie where you're a security guard, get beat up by the, famous Shokosugi. All right, hey, whatever, let's go with that.
Yeah.
But, he was awesome. And, I credit him for the type of teacher that I am because I was with him, since then.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, it was pretty cool.
So you trained with that, you go to Vegas. How many times did you go to Vegas? Is it something you just go every year? Do you have to qualify?
So on that one, there's two types of circuits. There's the closed circuit that you travel around. It's almost like NASCAR. You earn points.
Okay.
And then at the end of that world championship, that one's like a week long.
Okay.
So you would go there, like you would spend the whole week, and then you would fight from being seated, depending on how you were. The Vegas one is open, so a lot of people just show up and, luck of the draw, and you just fight your way up until
and it's
the
just
end.
like a bracket
yeah,
system.
just like a bracket system.
Going.
So back in the 90s, that tournament was one of the biggest ones where it would draw people from all over the place because they also gave away like the most money for the adults, which not a lot of money, but in karate terms, you give out a few grand. Everybody showing up for that. Yeah.
And it's in Vegas.
Yes. So, as a kid, not much you can do, but it was just cool to be there. Coming from Hawaii, Vegas was always like, oh, awesome. Let's go to Circus.
Yeah,
that was like all we wanted to go to.
Yeah. It's the shiny lights and the strip, right?
Yeah.
The Hollywood stuff. All right. So we'll kind of fast forward just a touch. So you end up in Southern Utah. You're going to Snow Canyon. You're still competing. Still competing. And I'm naive to this. So, is it different types of martial arts? Is it just jiu-jitsu? What are you competing in? How are you training?
At that point, I was just doing karate.
Okay.
In sport karate. So in Hawaii, I was lucky that my instructor took us to everything. So we would do karate tournaments. We would do the Chinese kickboxing, which is kickboxing and you can throw them. Okay. So that was a lot of fun. We always loved that. And we would do like the Kyokushin, bare knuckle type of tournament. So he took us and exposed us to everything. When I moved here, there wasn't a lot of kickboxing at the time. It had kind of died out in the 90s. So sport karate was big. You could get picked up by a team, get sponsored. And so I was lucky that I did. And I was able to travel around the country,
Wow.
Competing and fighting people all across the world, from Canada to Europe to Guatemala, Mexico, all over England. So, you get people that were coming from all over the place. So it was a really good experience to do that, especially being sponsored, because that's not cheap to do. And so I was lucky that I was able to, get myself into the point to where I could, make a good showing and get picked up by a team.
That's awesome. So, and that's all karate?
Yeah. So that was karate. I didn't start jiu-jitsu until like 1998 is when I started that.
And okay. So after you're competing with that, you graduate high school, I assume.
Yes. Yes. I did very good that year.
So graduate high school. Did you have some odd jobs? How did that work out to where you start your first gym?
So I was very lucky that my family owned a huge MLM company here. It was called Aola. And it was a big international company. We had offices in Canada and Japan. So I worked in the warehouse at first when I was going through high school and when I was competing. And then, because they would allow me to leave, on Fridays to fly out to whatever tournament I needed to, because I was pretty much traveling almost every other weekend, flying somewhere to fight. And so it was really good. And then when I got married and had my son, competing kind of slowed down a little bit, couldn't do it as much, which was fine, because being a dad was, I loved that. And so after that, moved up in the company and then worked my way into the office.
Yeah.
And got to do that. And it actually was great because I got to travel to Japan quite a bit and, do a lot of the office work out there and travel around there. That was a lot of fun.
That's cool. So how long until you open your first gym?
So I opened up about between that 98, 99.
Okay.
And I did it at our warehouse at the office.
Oh, nice.
We had a huge 60,000 square foot warehouse. And my dad's like, well, there's a lot of kids from the, just from the parents that work here that know what you do. Why don't you just throw some mats? And
that's
so
awesome.
My cousins allowed me to put mats in the warehouse, and I was just running classes out of there.
Kids had daycare.
Yeah, just teaching class. So, we'd get off work at 5. I'd work from 8 to 5, and then, just started out with a small group. And then they started bringing their friends' kids. So people that didn't even work there.
Yeah.
And they started signing up. And then the next thing you know, there's like 30 kids on the mat. And my dad's like, you need to open your own place. It's like, you're
growing out of
this. Too many people here.
That's awesome.
An hour. So in 2000, it's funny, the day my son was born, I signed the lease before I went to pick my wife at that time and him up to take them home.
Wow.
So, yep, that was, I was like, ooh, here we go.
So that was my next question is, I like to ask people, and I don't think there's a right answer if there's even an answer. But it's something I'm trying to mold and figure out is like a father work-life balance, right? And so
now that's rough.
Yeah. And I don't think there is a balance really. That's kind of what I'm coming up with. But
I'm hoping that, as, for other people who might be listening, find that balance.
Yeah.
'Cause that's the one thing, looking back, is I'm sure you as a business owner know how many hours you put there.
Sure.
And it's like, some people look at it like, oh, you've built all this success or you have this and that. But you look and say, it took a lot of time away. Right. And I was lucky that by the time my kids got a little bit older and into sports, I was able to have instructors to where I could go once or twice a week to go help coach their teams or go watch them play sports. But it was rough. My kids always look back and go, yeah, we traveled to a lot of places to compete at tournaments. Yeah. We never really hung out or got to see anything cool. We saw a lot of cool hotels and swimming pools. But, so I look back and I always feel bad. It's like, man, yes, we did a lot of things as a family, but we pretty much did one thing, going to compete.
Sure.
It's like my son was born and raised on the mat. All of my kids were. So it's like, that's all they knew. Where are we going to this month? And it's like, oh, man.
Yeah. One of our manufacturers, one of our safe manufacturers is Fort Knox, and they're in northern Utah. And I was talking to the vice president this a few months ago, and I was kind of telling him yeah, I can usually talk my wife into going for a drive with me, but it's always to go deliver a safe. It's never just to go hang out or to go to a place. And I think we had a delivery in Springdale, which is by Zion for people that don't know. So we went up and did that delivery, went to Zion, and this was months ago. I was telling him about this, and he started laughing, and he's like, man, I don't go anywhere unless it's something to do with a safe. And he's also, whenever I bring it up to my wife to go somewhere, she knows we're taking a safe with us, and I got to deliver it.
That's funny. And it's funny because my wife now, she knows that I always talk, I want to travel here, travel there, but I'm that guy that won't put what about the school? What about this? And she knows she'll just book a trip and then tell me, hey, this is when we're leaving.
Yeah.
Okay. And the funny thing is now she's so diehard in jiu-jitsu. She's the first one like, I already called this gym. We're going to go train here on this day. And I'm like, I thought we're going on vacation.
You're like, I was going to go hang out the Ritz.
I do this my whole life. I don't want to go. So no, she's like, no, we're already going here, going to train there. I'm like, okay.
That's awesome. No, it's cool that you guys can share that though. Yeah, so how did that come about, dude? So
it's funny. So when I got remarried, my wife said, look, one of the things is you have to teach me jiu-jitsu. So at 98, when I started jiu-jitsu, I had saw during that time in karate, like, hey, this is that next big wave that's coming. I had met someone and we were training, and on the feet, oh man, no problem. I clean him, and I wrestled in high school, so I could take him down. But once we hit the ground, literally you could count to 5 and he had choked me or arm locked me. And I'm like, I was smart enough then to go, I better learn this.
Yeah.
Instead of think, I'm too cool for that.
Resist.
Yeah. Oh no, you've tapped me out like 10 times in like the last couple minutes. I want to learn. So I was smart enough to get into it then. So that's now been a big part of my school. So we do a lot of karate, we do a lot of jiu-jitsu, a lot of kickboxing, a lot of boxing and wrestling. So my wife saw this just on the side, and she's a triathlete. So she would do like the Ironmans, and I had gone with her when we were dating. I'm like, oh wow, that's insane. Like just
it's a reason it's called that.
One weekend, she's like, yeah, we're going training. We're going to ride a 100-mile bike ride. I'm like,
I want to drive 100 miles.
Yeah. I'm like, that's like going to Vegas. She's like, yeah, I'll be back in 6 hours. I'm like, have fun. I'm going to be still here on the couch when you get back. And so she made me promise that I would teach her jiu-jitsu once we got married. And she is diehard. Like she trains every single day. She trains at my friend's school in the morning. Then she'll train at my school, and then she'll go to my other friend's school whenever she can to train with him, here in town. So we all get along really good. We're like we all have, jiu-jitsu schools. And so we've trained with each other for the past 20 something years.
Yeah.
And she's just all about it. So she literally trains like 3 times a day. So she's so diehard. So like I said, we go on a trip, she's wanting to train, and I'm like, I just want to find a good food place.
Yeah. Where are we going to eat?
Yeah. Where are we going to hang out at? And she's like, we're going to go to this gym today. We're going to go to that one tomorrow. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. See, I'm not one that travels much. My stress and anxiety about leaving the businesses, right? And I'm starting to get away from that. My longest business I've had, I own contracts with the post office, and we deliver mail, and I did it myself for on and off for 6 or 7 years. And there was like 4 years that I did it every day. I was the only one. There was no one to cover me. There was no one. If I was sick, I went, right? If the car broke down, I found another car and went out and delivered. And so I always had that hanging on me if I can't go anywhere. And then it kind of turned into like, I can't do anything physical because I have to work tomorrow. Like there's no one else to call in. Right. Yeah. And it ruled my life, and I've got those hired out now, and I'm starting to kind of pull away from that. Right. And so what my wife found out was, and I don't even really have the want to go places. Like traveling's not super high on my list, but it's on my wife's. She's a world traveler. She's been, Europe. She's been, they went to Mexico. Her and her friend just went to Mexico on a whim and stayed in hostels, and it was like super sketchy. Just 2 little girls from Utah,
That's crazy.
And she went out. Anyway, there's another place out towards Asia, but I can't. It's just slipping my mind. Anyway, so she's a big traveler. I'm not. Well, she found out that if she goes to, she looks up the sports, whatever sports in season, and she says, "Hey, do you want to go see Wrigley Field?" Well, yeah, then I'll go to Chicago to see Wrigley Field, but I don't want to go for any other reason. Yeah. And so she's kind of figured that out now. So now when she pitches me stuff, she'll be like, "Hey, do you want to go see a Mariners game? Hey, do you want to go see?"
And you know what? I recommend Get Out, because it's like, man, just, talking like how much time you spend in your work. It's like me. It's like, I live there.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not what life is about. It's like, if you don't get out and enjoy it, and I love what I do. And like, I love teaching. I love being able to do it, but still at the same time, it's like, I need to go spend time with my wife, spend time with my kids, or just, just to be able to adventure out. And I talk a big game. My wife always makes jokes. You watch so much YouTube on where you want to go. You see all these Italian places, like, baby, I want to go there. She's like, sure. She's like, we'll be lucky if we can even go to Zion's and, walk around, or, go
She's
down.
If I get you to Olive Garden,
Yeah.
that's a win.
Exactly. It's like, if I tell you, hey, look, there's a new, really good restaurant in California. Oh, you want to go now?
Yeah.
I'm like, true. Good point.
No, I'm trying to figure, and I'm not good at it. I mean, I'm admittedly pretty bad at that. And maybe balance is the wrong word. I think more of it, and this is what I'm finding out is, and I'll probably figure something out and learn something new down the road. But right now it seems like, what's the expectations? What's the expectations for me? What's the expectations for my wife? We have a 2-year-old now. So, what's the expectations for me to be there as a father? And, and I mean, she works full time. So like, I get lost in that sometimes, where like, well, I'm just working and I'll be done when I get home, type of thing. And I'm trying to open it up to being like, okay, maybe I need to be home more at 5 and 6.
The biggest thing, like with kids, is, talking to now that all 3 of my kids are adults, it's not like buying them stuff, but, simple things that why I tell my kids be better than what I did. Like my son, my oldest, likes to go fishing. I said, make sure you go do that when it's your turn to have kids, because they won't care what you bought them. They'll remember the time, like, hey, we went camping, we had a great time. We went and traveled and we went to do this. It's not about, everyone like, hey, cool, I got the newest Xbox. That'll break, or they'll get another one and they forget that you bought it for them.
Yeah.
But they will never forget the actual time you went and spent, because those are the few that we did that they remember. And I just wish, because time can't go back, but I wish I did more of those. Because to me, it's like, I've always been about my kids, but we're always in town. So they were all, they all played sports. My son was a great football player, to ask my daughter volleyball, and now she plays in college. So it's like, that was like year round. If you ask what they remember growing up, was dad waking us up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym, to go running and training. And that's what they did their whole lives. They're like, that's not fun all the time. I'm like, well, hey, I had to learn.
Yeah, my wife's really good at being outside, and so she's
awesome.
Rock climber, mountain biker, hiker. She's done some running. She's getting into it more. She just finished a half marathon. She's training for another half marathon right now. And so William, my son, they'll go out and like ride bikes, right? And he's only 2, so he's got one of those little like pedal-less bikes, whatever they are, and he kind of just pushes himself around the rocks and whatnot.
That's awesome.
And but I've tried to kind of start to stage our time that way. So we have an acre up on Cedar Mountain, and that's my like unplug area, right? So all summer we'll go leave the camp trailer up there and just go up on weekends when we have time. And then we got a boat this last year, just like a pontoon fishing boat, because that's again like an unplug for me, right? And so even just taking him, and it's a handful having a 2-year-old on a pontoon boat, right? But and it's not even that I know he won't remember that, but I'm just trying to set like the schedule of, hey, we're going to go fishing and just continue that, right?
Build that up.
Exactly.
And especially having Cedar Mountain's beautiful.
Yeah.
You go out there when those leaves are oh man, that is gorgeous up there. So, getting them used to, as they get older and older, like, hey, this is what we do, get outdoors. Those are the things they will never forget.
Right.
And those are the things that I'm like, I wish I did more of.
Yeah, with my business, I'm trying to figure that out. And again, I'm not good at it, but it's like at the safe store, I've got a Abram. I talk about him on here a lot. Abram Gardner. We just decided that after school, he's going to stay with me. He was going to go do some firefighter stuff, do EMT stuff. And I kind of told him like, hey man, we work well together. I've trusted him since he was 16 with keys to my store and be there alone. And he's always stepped up to everything I've asked him to do. And I'm like, why don't you just stay here and we'll figure out, a salary that makes sense. He wants to do some real estate investing. I've been doing that the last couple of years. So I'm like, hey man, like I'm already here of what you want to do. Just if you want to stick around, and, and so he's decided he wants to stick around. And so for me, I'm like, okay, I need to take that next step to start removing myself. Maybe I can just have to do 40 hours a week.
Finding, good staff, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
It's like my wife, besides doing all that training, she has a full-time job all day. And then she teaches her classes, which is like her getaway. Like, she loves that. She has an all women's class, so that's her happy time. And then she'll train again in my class after. Don't know how she does it. But like, she's good. She's up at like 5 a.m. and she's 100 miles an hour until she's down at 10.
Yeah.
I'm busy for a couple hours. Relax. Busy couple But, it's just insane to see that. And I'm lucky that I've got good instructors around me that, I could leave for a couple of days. I think it's more me being paranoid.
Exactly.
That I don't want to be gone too long, but they do a really good job. It's like, I trust them. They've done an incredible job, teaching, and then my son with his own school, and he's got an instructor that helps him. So, it's awesome to be able to have that. So it's like, anytime you get that chance, take it.
Yeah.
To be able to go out and spend some time with the family.
Yeah. I think last probably 2 years is really the first time like, when I would leave, it'd be over a weekend or a long weekend, right?
Yeah,
like, I would never leave weekdays. And so this last year is the first time I left, like, during a full week, and we purchased a property by Palm Springs by Joshua Tree National Park. And I've been out there, like, rehabbing the whole place. I thought it was going to be a quick paint job and rent, right? And it's turning out to be a full remodel. And so I think there's one room of carpet that's staying. Everything else has been painted, reflooring. This weekend I'm taking out new counters and doing all the new countertops through it's actually 2 houses, so through one of the houses. And I went out a couple weeks ago, and there was just so much to do. I just stayed there. And I'm like, well, it's Monday. And I looked at my schedule, and I'm like, okay, I don't have any safe deliveries. Abram can be at the store. And so I was like, hey, called everyone. Hey, I'm just going to stay out here another day and try and get all this finished up. Tuesday, man, there's still so much to do.
You do understand that's not taking a break, right?
You
went from one word to another word.
I know.
Even though it was a different location, it might have been fun.
I was able to leave that retail spot, though, right? That's the point I'm making. I usually leave work to go work more somewhere else, right? And but yeah, so that's like, I've never been able to do that. And so I think I stayed out there till Wednesday, and I think I came back Thursday morning. So I was out there like a full week. And my point was, I'm starting to be able to, like, detach from some of that stuff. And it's weird. I think what it is, and I mean, you'll have an opinion too on this. Like, when you grow that from nothing and you start it from nothing, and everything you put into it, all the time, everything you missed, all the things that you had to stay late for, it's hard to just, like, hand that over. Even if it's for a couple hours, it's hard to just hand that over to someone, regardless of how qualified they are to run it.
Absolutely. Just like what you said, from ground zero, opening up the school, my mind thought was totally different. I thought, well, I'm the champion. People just want to come to my school because I'm the best.
Yeah.
I've won this title and that title. And I had to learn the hard way. Nobody cares. That is not the first reason they came to my school. That's like way down the bottom. Like, oh, you're good too. Cool.
It's like a cherry on top.
You've won some stuff.
Yeah.
But, I had to learn it's not what I want. It's what can I do that they want. And then still, be able to pass on the skills that I hope that they can pick up. But if they don't like what I'm doing, they'll just go elsewhere. So I had to learn a lot of things. And then even just in business.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's like started from the beginning with no students. And I was lucky that when I left the warehouse that I had like 20 to 30, when I opened up my retail, location on Sunset. That was my very first place right behind Taco Bell. And I was like, man, putting, what I thought was marketing. Oh, I'm going to put a banner outside.
Yeah.
That's nothing. I'm going to hand out some flyers once in a while. It wasn't until I was lucky to get into a business group for martial arts schools that I learned, there's a lot more to it. And then being efficient and, offering a good service and doing business. The hard part is, and I still can't do it that way, is a lot of times in martial arts, especially with the business end, is I feel like a lot of times it's like being a used car salesman.
Yeah.
You know, I never wanted to be that. It's like sometimes you walk in and they're like, okay, look, we've got a 36-month here. Put this down. We're going to give you this, blah, 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 blah. And I did that for a while. And my school was, you know, really good at that time when I was younger. But I just hated being that person. So it was good that when I got remarried, my wife looked at everything and said, well, you know, all of these type of things, let's just streamline this and make it to where now you don't have to feel like that. And we can, you know, give people more options and things. And it was good to get that because I hated feeling like, you know, if somebody wants to quit, I don't want to make them feel like, well, no, you're stuck here for another 2 more months, you know, or 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, you signed a 3-year contract. I don't want to do that. I'm never taking anyone to court. If you want to quit, I'd rather have you have a good experience. Maybe, hopefully you'll come back.
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't do contracts. And, you know, that was one of the biggest things. It's like, if people have to go, there's always things, work, you know, family, other things they want to do. So hopefully we give them a good enough service and a good experience that when it's time, or, you know, they'll refer us to someone else because they know that they just had a good time there and they felt welcome. And that's, you know, the biggest thing I try to do.
I think I failed you on this part, but for everyone in Southern Utah, what's the gym you own? I don't think we've even mentioned it.
Sorry. So I own Ace Martial Arts and Fusion MMA. So Ace Martial Arts is my kids program, and then Fusion MMA and Jiu Jitsu is my adult program.
And that's the 2 different locations.
Nope. So they both teach both.
Okay. That's what I wasn't sure about.
So on Sunset, my son's school, they do both. So they've got the kids program, and then they also have an adult jiu-jitsu program. And then at my school, we have the kids program, we have the adult jiu-jitsu, and then we also have a full fight team. Okay. So we offer Muay Thai, kickboxing, boxing, wrestling. Those that want to compete in Muay Thai, or if they want to compete in kickboxing, or if they want to, you know, fight in the cage, we have all of those things for them.
That's awesome. So anyone that knows where our store is, the Safe Store, Southern Utah Safe and Vault, we are cross street from Taco Bell is where we are. So Ace, that gym on Sunset, they're a half a block west of us. So big building. I mean, you can't miss it. That sign's about the size of my store. So you can't really miss the gym. If you know where we are, you'll know where they are. So give me a little rundown of, and this is for myself as well. What does it take to start? What's the expectations of someone coming in and wants to do it like me that's never done anything? I didn't wrestle. I didn't do any of that.
And that's the beauty. You know, a lot of people think, especially when they hear like MMA or they think of jiu-jitsu, it can be a little intimidating.
Well, I've watched the UFC, so.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people think like, oh, if I go to train, I'm going to get hurt or I'm going to get beat up, or, you know, the instructors are going to be just like yelling and stuff. And that's not the case at all, especially with jiu-jitsu, which is what Tyler does. You know, it's just, you know, how to defend yourself on the ground. So it's really good for self-defense. It's an excellent workout. And, you know, we start out, we have, you know, instructors specifically for the beginners. And then as they progress, we have intermediate and advanced instructors. So, you know, we give them every, you know, level that they need, and we cater to their wants. As they progress, I never force anyone to compete. You don't have to. You know, being a champion is nothing. Nobody, like I said, it doesn't matter. What can I do to help you with your own goals? You know, whether it's to lose weight or I just, you know, want to have a good outlet to do something. A lot of them are looking for an activity. Even with adults, as with kids, self-defense is not usually the first reason people come. You know, their first reason is more of like confidence. And it could be for an adult, small confidence of getting out of their comfort zone to try something new. And they'll fall in love with jiu-jitsu because you can go as light as you want and learn a lot and, you know, not get hurt. Or you could go as hard as you want if you want to compete. So you can really choose what you want as you're still progressing both ways. You know, MMA, for those that come to the training class, you know, they're hitting mitts, they're hitting the bag. They never have to spar. If you want to spar, most of the sparring that we do at the school is very light, or what we call technical sparring, to where unless you walk into something with your hands down, you're not going to get hurt. And then those that want to compete, yes, we have to have a little bit more harder training, but it's only for those that want to do that. Everybody else, everybody's got a job. Everyone's got to get, you know, to it. I've got doctors and lawyers that come and train. They can't afford to get hurt. So, you know, I want to make sure that they're able to get what they need and still, you know, have a good time training.
Yeah. So So Derek wants to come and train. So I just show up in a t-shirt and basketball shorts, or
That's
how's that work?
exactly it. So you walk in, we usually, we have a free class. So you come in and try out all the different classes that we offer, see which ones you like. Some people just want to do jiu-jitsu. Some people just want to do our striking classes. And, then there's the ones that want to do both. So I let them try everything out, see what they like, and then they can pick which one they want to do. So that way, they get to see some people, oh, I only like this, or I only like that. And a lot of times what happens is after a while, they keep seeing the other class. Can I try that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it just kind of opens the door into the next step.
So,
And we don't need to know like dollar amounts, but how does it work? Do you just pay per class? Is it?
So we just offer monthly. Like I said, some places offer contracts. And on that, just my own opinion, just have to be wary about that. Make sure that you can find, if you did need to quit, what is the process of that? Because I've seen the good and the bad, the ugly on those type of things. All we ask for is a 30-day. If someone can say, hey, I got to move, cool.
Yeah,
not a
give
problem.
us heads up.
Yeah, absolutely. So we try to make it as easy for everyone.
So I'm paying a monthly, and then how many times would I train? Say I'm doing, because I'm interested. That's why I've been interested for about 2 years. I've just never stepped in the building.
So again, we make it simple. We have one price. You can come do everything you want. And what I recommend, I tell people to come at least twice a week, especially for those that work a lot. Don't try to think you have to come every day. We offer classes 6 days a week that they could come to. But, I always say we come at least twice a week. My wife has her women's classes, and the funny thing, they're more dedicated than the guys.
Believe it.
I always laugh as she'll get them in, and next thing you know, the wives are starting to get their husbands to come in. and it's funny because the wives are promoting and progressing faster. And I'm always teasing them. I said, do you know why? Because she comes to more classes than you do. And they're always laughing about it. So it's really cool to see that.
No, that's awesome. So how does it go from, well, let me rephrase that. So getting your kid into it, he just kind of grew up with it, obviously, like you said. Did he just take off with it? I imagine he enjoys it if he's teaching it now. So how did that, going from you to him, how did that work?
And again, being that young father, he didn't really have a choice. He was literally born on the mat. From the day he was born, he was, right there by my side when I was teaching. He'd be falling asleep wearing my headgear and my equipment, all over the place. And that's all he knew. So when he was 3 years old, I put him in his first karate tournament.
Nice.
And he was the youngest one. And, he's athletic. So he picked up quick. Plus I trained him hard.
Yeah.
So, he's been very successful through karate, through, wrestling in high school to, the kickboxing that he's done to, winning championships in both karate and kids MMA. I put him in that when he was young.
Wow.
And, now he's competing in, MMA now as an adult and in kickboxing. So he's doing both.
So can you make a living competing? Like, are you getting paid enough to do that?
So now this is, it's funny you ask that because I was lucky and fortunate that my jiu-jitsu coach, Justin, he's very well connected. So I was lucky that I learned MMA from the best guys around, from guys who've been in the UFC, from the champion, from Matt Hughes to Jeremy Horn. Jeremy Horn's been a big, inspiration for me, allowing me to come and learn from his gym and being a part of his fight camps. So I got to be exposed to a lot of high level people to see what it takes and the hardships that it goes through. And the hardest conversations that I have with my fight team, when they turn pro and they want to chase that is, you have to be realistic. There is no money up front. It's a very hard life. Like you can't quit your job because even at the highest level, at the UFC, they're the prelim fighters. They're not making enough to live on that.
Sure.
They're not making livable money. And, unless they have a lot of sponsors as they get better, it's a very rough career and you can get cut. You lose a few fights and you're cut, and now you're going back to a smaller show to rebuild up. So it's a very hard life to be a professional fighter in MMA. People look at boxing and go, oh, well, they make more money. Only a few.
Yeah.
That's a very small limit that are making insane amount of money to where, the UFC, even their highest guys, they're not making that type. And so even for them, I've had a really close friend who had fought for the UFC belt. And he's struggling. He doesn't make it financially, and he's been to the highest that he could reach. And so, again, they have to figure out, am I good enough to teach, because just because you've been to that level doesn't make you a great teacher.
Yeah.
So it's like opening of a gym is not always the smartest thing to do. So it's always good that if while they're, I know a few of them that were smart with their money, invested it well, and now they can live comfortably for the rest of their life because they learned, don't live that fast life. It's like, I have a lot of friends who've been in the NFL, and, to see like, where that has gone.
Yeah.
It's tough because they think that money never ends. So the smart ones, especially knowing that that fight career is so short, which is the one thing that I'm happy that my son understands. We talk about it all the time. It's like, look, while you're young and single, we chase it as far as you can go. We'll take, however your, ability takes you, we'll chase it. When it's time to have that family, we'll have to have a different conversation. Not saying that you have to quit, but we really need to be realistic of where are you? Are you able to reach that next level? It's good that he already has a gym established. So he already has that, work. So he's got something that he's already doing.
Sure. But
for a lot of my fighters, the hard conversation is when I have to tell them it's time to stop. If you want to fight, we fight for fun. But, it's very heartbreaking. And it's always like the worst conversation that I have to have with my athletes when I tell them that I don't want to be that dream buster. But at the same time, part of my job is to be realistic.
Yeah.
And give them my opinions. And, look, if we've lost a few, how did we lose? Were they super close? Were they close ones? Okay, maybe we're still right there. Let's keep going. If it's not, and we've taken some hard losses, then we really need to look and say, okay, what are our real options? I mean, are we still going to be able to get and compete and fight against these level guys? And as a coach, you get hated or you'll get loved by your fighters depending on which way you look at it. Because sometimes they might think you're holding them back. And a few times I'm not always right. I've been wrong, and I apologize to them and say, hey, maybe you're right. This was a better option for you, or this, like finding what weight class is always the toughest. And I've made mistakes on that, telling people, hey, we need to be the biggest that we can get. So you got to cut and let's see how much we can cut. And, I've made mistakes, meaning that cutting them to that weight class was worse because they were weaker.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I had to learn the hard way on that. And again, as you come up, you learn, and then, doesn't mean that you don't make that mistake again. So
yeah, and that experience is worth something.
That's a tough one. Because I know, because, I have to eat that one and I have to tell them that's on me, so when they get that, then it's okay, we'll readjust. And, I've been lucky that I've got a good group of, I've had a really great group back in the days. And, I've got some young ones now that, they try and they're willing. Now it's more of like, hey, let's develop a little bit more before we start getting out there. Because that's the hardest thing. People want to join a gym to fight, and they want to fight within like 6 months. That's tough. I tell them, I said, it's closer to a year, depending on how fast you can assimilate the skill.
How old are these guys? Are they
these kids now that I have, they're in their early 20s.
Okay.
So they're young. So they're, in college or, just working and things like that. So trying to, teach them like, hey, you've got to go do these things. Because I don't have the time like a regular, like if you go to like a big fight gym, they've got guys that just sit there all day and they just train fighters.
Yeah.
Training fighters brings no money. Like it is not, you do not have a fight team to make money, because when you travel out to fight events, you got to pay your own way to get there until you make it to the big shows where they're, hey, we'll fly you out, type of thing. So, it's like, I can't spend all day with them saying, okay, let's do your workouts. So I give them, here's your workouts for your cardio, here's your workouts for your lifting, and then we'll get together at night and then we'll work on technique and sparring.
That's awesome.
And then I can kind of see while they're training, you haven't been really doing your cardio, have you?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's almost an accountability thing too.
You can see. And then, I always have conversations like, how bad do you want it? If you want it to be recreational, cool, tell me, not a problem. We can still find those fights. We'll find competitive matches. But if you're wanting to try to chase it and see what you can do, then you really have to be, like my dad says, you got to be willing to do what others won't in order to get, to get it today. And that's the truth. Like in business, it's, are you willing to do the extra things that the other business isn't in order to be successful?
Right.
And that's tough because everybody says yes.
Right.
I've gone to that, what's his name? Tony Robbins. I've been to one of his things. Man, it was like a cardio routine. He gets you up. You're jumping.
Oh,
Yeah. And then at the end, he goes, yeah, everybody feeling motivated? Yeah. And he goes, great. Guess what? Tomorrow, you're not going to feel this same motivation right now. So you have to have a plan.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's true. Because right now I'm like, oh man, I'm going to go do this. The next day, until you sit down with that paper. Okay, this month, I want to get this done. Then I break it down to like, okay, now I have my plan. So that's what I'm trying to teach, my kids now. It's like, motivation is great, but you got to have a plan or else it just goes out the window eventually. So
motivation's great on Monday. What are you doing Tuesday?
Yeah. Especially as you get older, everyone's like, my wife competes at 45. And I'm like, I've done this since I was 4. I'm like, I'm banged up. Everyone's like, well, why don't you compete anymore? I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's great.
Yeah, the injuries I've had, I'm like, I'm good where I'm at.
No, that's awesome.
It's like in jiu-jitsu, it's like, you'll get people that travel through town. And if black belts come through, you don't have a choice. You got to roll with them.
Yeah.
Because they want to see, is the professor legitimate? You don't have to be a champion or be great, but they want to feel that can he really do what they say? So,
sure.
I'm like, cool. As long as I can, give a good account of myself, I'm a good. Because I've got a lot of friends, world champion jiu-jitsu. I'm like, I'm that in karate. I am not that in jiu-jitsu. I was just smart enough to know I needed to learn this.
Yep.
I put my time into it. But, there's a huge difference. It's like, man, you see like my friends who are world class. It's like, I tell people, like, if you tell people that you are usually the greatest one in the room, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Even in karate where I'm, reach the top. Usually if I'm training hard, the other guys in the room are way better than me.
Sure.
My teammates from those days, I'm like, those guys are amazing still. I have one that probably looks better now at 45 than he did at 20. I'm like, holy smokes.
Yeah, I feel like the whole jiu-jitsu is a lot more mainstream right now than it's ever been.
Oh, it's huge.
For me, it was Jocko. Jocko kind of got, like, I was aware of it, right? That's funny. We've got Jocko's book behind you.
Awesome.
But I was aware of it. I'd watched UFC. But it was never something I ever thought of. And then I'd read a couple of Jocko's books, listened to his podcast, and it was kind of made me think like, man, like I could go do that. And like I'm the most out of shape I've ever been in my whole life. Grew up really athletic, played all the sports. And I've talked to Tyler a handful of times. He's even like trying to hold me accountable. Hey, it's Wednesday, you coming? And I haven't stepped foot in there yet, but it's something I want to get into. And let me ask you this too. Age-wise, when do you start kids? Is it just
so
depends
we have
on the
classes
kid, or?
for 3 on up.
Okay.
So it really just depends on the child. It's like some kids at that age, it's going to take a long time to get them to listen. Others are really good right out the gate. So it really just depends on the parent. So I really don't tell them, hey, this is the best year. Sometimes, I've got some great 3-year-olds. Sometimes might take a few more years. So there's sometimes I'll tell a parent, hey, they're just not ready yet. Because I don't want them to waste their money to see their kid just run around.
Yeah.
So, it's 6 years old is always, usually pretty good. But again, depending on the child.
Okay.
And then I've got them up into over 70. And let me tell you, the 70-year-olds that I have had 2 of them, these guys are firecrackers.
Dang.
There is one, Mark, and I'm like, man, I wish I could be in his shape now. He is the funniest thing. He'll come on the mat, he'll talk smack. Professor, I'm going to choke you out today. And he's funny. And the first time I met him, he had moved from Seattle.
There you
got
go.
out of there. And the first time we grappled at the end of class, and he's first thing he says, I'm going to get you. So I'm laughing. I'm like, I got to be nice. I don't want to hurt him. And man, when I felt him grab me, I said, oh, this guy's strong. And then we start moving and I'm letting him move. I'm like, oh no, this guy knows me. He's good. And so he is like the best thing to see on the mat. Like he gets there and you see him there and he's going 100 miles an hour. You're like, what's my excuse?
Yeah.
And then even the guy that I train under now, Master Fabio Santos, he's in the 70s. And man, first thing he came in, he goes, well, I want to see how good you are. Let's roll. Same thing. I'm like, oh, go light.
Yeah.
Like 1 minute and he looks at me, he goes, you're not even going to pass my guard. So he goes, you better pick it up. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm come after this guy now. And just to see him move, I'm like, man, this is amazing. Because that guy's like a legend in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, training under the right guy.
Yeah, to be under him was like, holy smokes. I'm lucky that, here in town, I was very fortunate to train under Jake Johnston, who runs the Gracie Jiu Jitsu here in town. I've known him since that 98 time. Okay. And Justin Ellison, who was a no-gi world Jiu Jitsu champ. It was where I first started. So if anybody, like I always tell people, and Jake and I have had schools for a long time. And it's funny because we work perfectly together. His jiu-jitsu is so pure. It's like, man, I've never felt anybody that moves like him. I always tell him, like, man, I'm trying to move like you more every day. And he laughs, no, you do. I'm like, no, you're just making me feel good today. And then Justin, on the other hand, he's like, he'll just come out and smash people. He's used to that competitive, he's won so many tournaments and has won, world championships in jiu-jitsu. He was always in those, they call them like the absolute division. So if you're one of the top guys, you're in like a special invitation only, you're fighting for that money. Yeah. And he was always in those. And I'm like, man, I was lucky to get exposed to the right people.
So what, just curiosity off of me as well, because I would want to come do it. One, like, so I know I would have some knowledge to defend myself if I needed to. Another one, I would love to get my son involved when he gets to that age, right? And so that question was for me. But I think it'd be fun to come and learn, and then being able to work out and have a cardio with it too. What's the biggest reason people come?
Exactly that. It's really for adults. A lot of it's fitness, because they know with jiu-jitsu, the self-defense is automatic. You are going to get good because you are constantly on the ground in the same positions. Unlike karate where, a guy throws a punch and you.
Yeah.
I was lucky that because we competed so much and we did so much full contact tournaments growing up, we learned quick what works, what doesn't. This is what looks good on the demo team that everybody goes, wow, let's go sign up there. But it does not work when you spar. So I was lucky my instructor said, if you can't get it to work in sparring, it is not going to work in the street. So that's why we were lucky that we learned a lot of boxing and Muay Thai. And he was trained from Benny the Jet, who's like the greatest American kickboxer and greatest American Muay Thai fighter ever.
Wow.
He was the very first one in the 70s to travel overseas and beat a lot of those champions. So I was lucky that my knowledge came through my instructor, who was through him. So worked out great. But fitness is the biggest reason, especially for jiu-jitsu, because you can go at your own pace. So in a lot of like striking arts, you can't stop in the middle of a sparring round and say, hey, you're going too hard. If you were doing a live round. Now, if you were doing like a technical round, like how I have most of my guys fight, you're not really going to get hurt, but it stings, but if you're ready for that, it's okay. But in jiu-jitsu, we have what we call tempo, to where all you're doing is moving. So your cardio is going through the roof and you're not really fighting hard for a submission. My partner knows if he makes a big enough mistake and I'm able to capture his arm, he lets me finish it. He taps and we just keep going. We don't restart. We just start right where we at. So the goal of that is cardio, cardio, cardio. It's not even at a high speed. It's like 50%, but you're nonstop moving for that 5 to 10 minute round. Then you move into what we call flowing. Flowing, we're going to wrestle at full speed, but I'm not going to fight for the sub. Again, if it's there, I take it. But now it's like, how fast can I go from one position to another? So then the cardio goes even higher. And then you can, we make an agreement. Hey, let's have a live round. Now we're both fighting for that submission. I'm defending, you're attacking, I'm trying to get on top, or I'm trying to, submit you from the bottom. But we both have the understanding this is what that round is. So I make sure that everyone, before they start, come to agreement. What do you want to do? So if I'm hurt, I tell them, hey, I want to do tempo. Hey, please don't touch that arm. I'll tap if you do. Okay, cool. And the beauty of it is, and again, it's hard with guys. At first it's that, that little puffiness.
Sure.
They don't want to tell somebody to go light. So I'll usually roll with them first, say, hey, it's okay. I said, look, if you get tired, tap. It's okay. You're starting. You're not like a purple belt or a brown belt where I'm going to be like, no, you're going to have to now, you're at a high enough level, you can survive that round.
Yeah.
If you're tired and now if they catch you, hey, it is what it is. But at a white belt especially, you're learning. There's no obligation for anything. So it's like, enjoy what you're doing, because that's how you learn where to not be. So, hey, I can get hurt really bad if I'm doing this. or, okay, this is where I want to be to where now I can reach my goals faster. Hard with the young college kids. They come in on day one and they just say, how do we get to the fight team?
Yeah. How do we hammer this out?
Saying, I want to go compete in the jiu-jitsu tournament next week. Cool, we can, but all right, but this is what it is.
Yeah.
So, but for, we get a lot of adults in their, 30s and in their 40s. And that's the biggest thing is say, hey, I just want to get into shape. We're lucky we train a lot of the law enforcement officers here in town. And for them, it's really good because that's part of their job.
Sure.
So, the ones that come in are dedicated, they see that right away that they don't need to be awesome jiu-jitsu guys. They just need to learn some few positionings that can help with what they already know. And that, that makes a huge impact on what they do.
That's awesome. Anything else? We're at an hour. I
don't know, man. It went fast.
I do have one more thing I want to talk about, though. Your wife's stuff. So tell me what your wife does with the foundation and how that came about.
So it's crazy. Like when my wife came to me, she was still, I think, a blue belt. So she'd been training for like 2 years and got her blue belt. And she goes, I really want to do a women's class. And I'm like, well, honey, at first, usually you got to be purple brown. You want to be higher to do that. And she was like, I know. But, I want to just start one. I'm like, all right. And then, of course, in my mind, I'm like, you might only get 10 people.
Yeah.
But my wife is one of the best headhunters in the country. Like she recruits for Red Bull. Mm-hmm. She recruits for Honeywell. Like she's hired by all these crazy companies to hire their executives. So in her mind, she's like, oh, you think that, huh? Okay, we'll see. Her first week, she had like 20 people. Now she's over 100 women. Over 100 that come to her classes. So she has literally one of the biggest women's only class in the entire country. So, it's awesome to see. And maybe only 5 or 10 of them compete. The rest are there because it's not even for the self-defense. To them, again, they like the confidence that it builds. They get to be around other women. That she's got her moms in it. She's got some, young college girls that, that wrestle and like to do that, but they all get along together. So it's really good because for the young ones, they get to be around people who've been around, who've got kids, and they can, they all intermingle, which is awesome to see. And my wife does different things with them. Like she'll bring people in for different things. So like we had Elizabeth Smart come down because my wife is the representative under Mio Strong from Salt Lake, who heads the organization. And so my wife trains with her and represents that down south. So we teach it here in St. George and up at SUU as an accredited course. Cool. She does. Yeah. I'm just a beat up dummy at the end. But it's been incredible to see when Elizabeth came down to St. George, she came and taught. And I was sitting in the back when she pulled up. And when she got out, I overheard, she was like, she was just talking to her sister, like, I hope, there's enough people that come. Because, she'd been around. Everyone knows her story. So she wasn't sure how many people would show up. And we had, there were several hundred people that showed up to the gym just to hear her story. And so when she walked in to see her light up and then see her like interact with all of them, she stayed around till she shook everybody's hand. It was awesome. Amazing to see how genuine. I mean, she even said, she's like, I take the class from Mio. It's like going through what I went to. I don't want to, feel helpless again because, she had, besides that whole trauma, she had another instance that she talks about being in a plane, like on a commercial flight. Really? And someone tried something like, that's insane to think that, that people like in that type of confinement, that it wouldn't be hard to just, to do that. So it was, really cool. So my wife loves being a part of that because it's not even so much the self-defense, but it's, them trying to build, their confidence, and especially ones who've had trauma. It's been really good, to see them progress. And then, for her to do that all on her own. People are like, oh, you do this. I'm like, I don't do that. Yeah. That's her thing. I'm like, some people say, oh yeah, they've got this women club. I'm like, no, not me. Yeah. I'm like, I watch from my room. We'll go home, if she has questions on techniques. But, she's now been doing it like 7, 8 years. So she's done it quite a while. So she's very highly talented and in her own right. So I just let her do her thing. And like I said, she likes to travel around and train with people. And she's made more contacts with other like world champion women And like they're her like good friends. So when they come through town, they come hang out. I'm like, oh wow, sorry. Can I get an autograph?
Yeah. Starting to overshadow you a little bit.
I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm trying to find my way off the mat, telling son, here you go.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, so what is the plan? Is there a future plan laid out with you and your son, or what are you guys doing with the gyms?
With the gym, it's always look to grow, so again, if I have a student that's, really wanting to do that, yeah, we'd love to open up a third location.
Awesome.
On the other side of town somewhere. So, that is definitely something we've looked at. So, we almost did that, was it like pre-08? Whew, man, that would have, that was a very tough year. And that is the hard part about, the type of business that we're in. It's like, I understand, that's like the first to go. So trying to teach my son now, say, hey, you got to have some backup eggs and different baskets.
Good point.
Can't throw them all into one.
Yeah. I mean, we're in that same category too. It's like I don't know, the extra money's not the way to put it, but it's like any gym membership, I guess. Like they're going to cut that if they need the money to pay their car payment.
And I understand that. So it's like, I can't tell someone, I'm going to take you to court. I can't do that. It's like, I know you lost your job. So I understand it's hard for me thinking, well, dang, what am I going to do? And again, during that whole 08 time, I worked at Winder. So I would teach classes all day and night, and then I would drive the truck, from 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. Those were rough 2 years.
Yeah, I bet.
That was brutal, but I didn't want to close my school down, so I'm like, no, I'm not going to close it. And right before that, my school was super successful, but it literally went from, 300 students in like 07 to like 50.
Wow.
And then built up to 80 where it sat for a while. And then now, all because of my wife. I mean, my schools now are, 3 times those sizes. So it's insane. But not like my wife, like I said, she's very driven. So she makes sure all we got to do is just follow her lead.
That's so cool. No, that's cool that you guys, I think that's kind of every guy's dream that has a son and has a business, that they'll be somewhat interested in it to be able to continue that, whether that's retirement or after you're gone, right? I had a conversation with a guy the other day that has a multi-million-dollar financial business, and he has 3 kids and none of them want to take it over. And he's just like, man, I just never thought about that. I always thought I'd just pass it on. And the last kid that would have been, part of his life to step in just told him he didn't want to be a part of it. And for me, like that was my thing. I was trying to build something and I kind of transitioned from, I want to build something that he can take over, or he will take over, to he could take over if he wanted to, or sell it and go his own way. And so, yeah, it's cool to hear kind of that multi-generational thing that you have too.
It's funny you say that, because I tried talking my oldest son not to get into it.
Yeah.
I was like, no, go to school, find something else. I literally told him, I said, this was my dream. It doesn't have to be your dream. So I'm like, when I pass, if you still want to teach, just do something small on the side. I'm like, I don't care about the name. I've been here for a long time. So people are like, oh, they know them. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
It's like, just, if you want to keep doing it, do it on the side. My youngest son, he's going to become a commercial pilot. And I'm like, awesome. Daddy needs some flight benefits. So he teaches for me now. He's an amazing teacher, but his whole thing is saying, no, I want to do other stuff. Awesome. My daughter, she's the funny one, because all of them are incredible teachers. Like they're awesome to watch the kids' class. She's like, nope, I'm doing this. So my oldest is the only one that when I kept trying to talk him out, and he's like, no, this is what I do. I'm like, okay, here's the good, here's the bad. So as long as you know both, there's no, nothing going to surprise you on the inside.
Sure.
So, yeah.
To think about having that though, because like my older brother, he's very successful in business, and he helped me through some of the beginning years but after that, I've kind of taken the reins, and he's doing his own thing and is super busy. Right. And I can always reach out to him, but, it was almost daily when I started. But to think that like what you could have done different, or what I could have done different if, a father figure or a father was able to be like, here's A, here's B, here's C, here's the good, here's the bad. If you turn this way, this is what's going to happen. And it's amazing. And hopefully, and that's the goal, I think, is to be able to teach them to steer that the right way, and to be able to show them what, like you were saying, there's with this new gym, you you need to do the marketing, you need to do the elementary schools, you need to do and you were kids parties and that kind of stuff to be able to gain that. Like you had to do that. And so does he. Well, I'm showing you the ropes to do it. This is how you do it. Right. If that makes sense. Maybe it doesn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I often think about that if I would have had, and I mean, I guess I did here and there, friends, parents. I was always close with my like best friends' dads. And I don't know why. It's kind of a weird thing, really, if you think about it. But my first best friend when I was younger, 8, 9, 10, 12, his dad had a pest control business. And we'd always go out and he'd do termites and tent the houses. And so we'd always go out and help him roll up the tents and, clamp them all and everything. And that was like my first breakthrough of like entrepreneurship. So Shane Morris is his name. He does gecko pest control and he still does it. He sprays my house today, so it's kind of cool for me. And he probably doesn't view it that way, but I'm like, it's cool that was my first, introduction. And that was back in the day. I remember we'd work all day. We'd go back, we'd have dinner at their house. And then after dinner, he had this little ghetto, computer in the kitchen with the landline telephone right there. And he'd be making phone calls for the next day. Hey, just wanted to make sure I can come by at 2, want to make sure I can come by at 3. And just seeing all that. And I'm sure it wasn't even a thought to hit. Well, it might've been actually, because he was always trying to teach us, but, like the impact that had on me. And then, I went from that to the stouts, and Ron Stout was a huge for me growing up. It was kind of that teenage years. And it was big for me because I was losing the relationship with my dad at the time. Parents got divorced. So he had always kind of stepped in. And like we've had Marty Coford on here. He owned the Health Nut. It was a health food store right there on Bluff in 700, I think. And now he's a therapist and he's a partner in the practice. And I just think of like all these guys that I was friends with, like the kids, but it was almost like a mentor thing for me to be there around the dads.
That's cool. Cause man, as you know, entrepreneurs, not easy to do.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's not always for everyone. It's sounds cool, but then you meet Uncle Sam and that is a lesson that if you don't take care, he's the one uncle that never goes away. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like how many times can you get hit and get back up, right? That's how I feel. That's how I feel like entrepreneurship is. Like when you're going to throw the towel in and just go do fast food and make $14 an hour. Yeah. That's always my joke. I'm like, I think Del Taco's at $21 an hour for night shifts.
I'm like, man, I'm going to hang out there for a few hours.
I'll run that entire place for 21.
I'm good.
No, man, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming in. This has been fun. I would love to have your wife on. I think it'd be cool to have your wife come in and kind of tell her side of it and what she does and what she offers.
She's got a funny story on how she came up through her, college. She was a tennis player to, now doing this. I'm like, yeah, it's funny.
So if someone wants, just real quick, just to end this, how does someone get a hold of you? How do they get into the gym? Is it something you just walk in?
You can come in or, just book something online. So if you go to our website, either acekarate.com for kids or teamfusionmma.com for my adults. And you can just, click right in there. We've got some specials, online specials for them to come try that. Or you can just walk through the door and, try out a class for free.
And is there certain nights or certain...
So we do jiu-jitsu every night.
Okay.
But we've got, if they just want, like some people just want to learn boxing. So we do that Monday and Wednesday night at 7:30. If they want to do Muay Thai kickboxing, we do that Tuesday and Thursday.
Perfect. All right. I think that's great.
Thank you again for letting me on and chirping your ear off for a while.
I had a good time, and it was, and I've kind of picked Tyler's brain about all this stuff, but it's been educational for me too. And
hopefully we'll have you come
gets
through.
Me over that hump, man.
I'm telling you, I won't let you grapple with Tyler. He's a monster. He is a beast.
He told me, he said, dude, just come, dude, and I'll just roll with you. I'm like, hell no, I'm not rolling with you.
I'll roll with you. You'll have a great time. You'll come back. Tyler's good.
I bet.
Tyler is really good.
Yeah, just his voice intimidates me. I can only imagine rolling with him.
He's the nicest guy. But
I love Tyler.
He is really good on the ground, and he is no joke to play with. So I'm like, holy smokes. Whew.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, if you enjoyed that episode, this is Aaron Reis, Fusion and Ace. 2 different locations in town. One's by Costco, right?
Yep.
Just past Costco in the
right next to
Cow
Children's
Ranch. And right there. I couldn't think of what that little corner was called, but yeah, right there. And then right next to us on Sunset. So yeah, look them up online, go stop by. And your son's name is Christian. He's the one over on Sunset. So
Yes.
Now you're part of the family. Don't feel intimidated. And I guess I should just have some ownership right here and say, I'm going to stop by and do it. Because it was actually my goal last year to enroll into something, and I didn't. So maybe that's my 2023. So, all right, guys, thanks for still being with us. This is episode 76, Aaron Reis. If you've enjoyed this, please like, share, comment, all that fun stuff that helps us grow the podcast. We've kind of been going through some jumps lately. Our YouTube channel's growing a lot. We've had a ton of views on YouTube. Surprisingly, TikTok. I never thought I'd have a TikTok account, but TikTok's going crazy too. So keep interacting with us on there, and we appreciate you guys. We'll see you next week. There it is.